On today's episode, we have Justin Ralls, the founder of Faith Over Fear Sober Living. And as you'll get to hear, I've had the pleasure of having a front row seat to watch God move through this entire family. Justin's not only a force for the kingdom of God, but he is one of my best friends. We talk a lot today about Rob's Ranch, and I wanted to take a second and tell you who they are. They are a Christ-centered rehab facility in Purcell, Oklahoma. And if you know somebody struggling with drugs or alcohol, they can't go to a better place. You can look them up at robsranch.org, or you can call them today at 405-225-0540. I hope you enjoy today's episode.
Did you see the video I did for Rudy? And it was terrible.
No, you took all the credit. I noticed that. I didn't call you out on it, but you took all the credit. You said, this was my idea. Come do the... I was like, wow. You know what part I'm talking about? I'll have to edit it in. Yeah, you took all the credit.
I should have gave all the glory to God. I was God that day, Craig. It ain't a big deal.
Wouldn't have hurt.
I'm still human. Sometimes I'm God.
No, that was cool. How did that even come about?
I don't know. That guy said that they told him to call me.
It was with the Asphalt Association, right? Yeah. For the Baptist deal that y'all did. Yeah. And then what was your part in that? What was the separate? There was a separate video. What was that?
That was, I didn't send you both of them, didn't I? Right. One was Corey.
Right.
And then
but what was yours that they were covering?
Just what Rudy's about.
Okay. Bible study and all that stuff.
Yeah, just showing the Oklahoma what Rudy is about and what we're founded on. Or not founded on, but what we're doing. You know what I mean? Just tell them a little bit about Rudy Construction.
How long did you work for Rudy before you got sober?
A year.
Oh, it was only a year? You were doing your own
But I've been there twice before at Rudy.
When you were coming and going, were you going to work for your dad?
Mm-hmm. I would work on and off for my dad, and then I had a little stretch where I worked for myself.
Doing like back porches and stuff, just anything you could get.
I did a lot of stuff in Norman for these two guys that were building condos.
Oh, yeah?
So I did some alleyways. And
are they still doing condos? You know who they are?
No, I don't think they're doing condos anymore. But
there's a guy the reason I asked that is there's a guy we do a lot of condos.
Is his name Pete?
No, R&R. They do a lot of condos, I think. Or not condos, duplexes. I'm sorry. Duplexes.
Yeah, that's what these were, like but these were 4 or 5 story. But I did all the stem walls for him. I did all his house floors. I did some alleyways. I did all the parking and everything for him. Just went out actually off of Marketplace, Craigslist.
Really?
They posted an ad. That's what's crazy. And then I got to know them real well and started doing their work, and I done everything. And then I just got too out there and stopped showing up one day.
And that's when you came back to Rudy? Yeah. Every time you kind of get out there, would you come back to Rudy?
Yeah. I'm like, well, I know I always have a job because I'm a decent finisher. But
who were you working for? What crew?
I worked for Chris for a year. That's when Jared Bills was just an intern for Manhattan.
Wow.
Yeah. And we worked together out there for a little over a year. And Jared was still in college and going to college half days and coming to the job site the other half days.
Wow. Man, 2020. Let's tell your story leading up to 2020. 2020 is when you got sober, right?
Yep, 2020.
Let's talk about 18, 19, kind of leading up to that. You were on heroin.
Yeah.
Were you on what was the long stretch? I mean, all the way in those years, right?
Yeah. So got out of prison in 17 and decided, okay, I'm gonna live right. I'm gonna try to better my life. Did good for a little while. I say a little while, maybe 6 months, and no drinking, no nothing. Then started drinking like on the weekends. Hey, I can have me a couple beers, no problem. And next thing you know, doing a little meth on the weekends with that beer, and then it kind of just took over from there. And then I control it for a little bit where I can, use throughout the week and still maintain my job and everything like that. But and then eventually it just takes over, and then I start losing stuff in life. You know, I going from job to job, then eventually no job.
Is that why you and Olivia were off and on through those years?
Yeah. So
If you get Sue out there, she'd leave pretty much.
well, a little backstory on that is me and Olivia was, when I was 16 years old, I was actually on vacation, and my brother called me and said, "Hey, I got this girl that just it described you as her dream man."
One of your brothers did?
Yeah, Josh did. He said
know
this girl, he was dating this girl named Brandy Hazelwood. We was young, and he's like, this girl that she just brought here, her friend just described you to a T. I need you to meet her. So when I got back, I met her, and we hit it off, and we started dating, and she wanted to live a normal life and wanted me to come home every night. And mind you, we're 16, 17 years old, and I wasn't having that.
Were you out of the house? You were out of your parents' house? Were you on your own?
Yeah.
What age were you on
16.
your own? 16, you went out on your own?
Yeah.
Were your brothers on their own?
Yeah.
Or were they
Yeah,
really?
me and Josh were rebellious and didn't want to listen to anybody or anything, so.
I mean, that doesn't shock me. I don't know why I made that face, but I didn't know you guys were out on your own that early. Did you finish high school?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so GED, and yeah, it was just
What grade did you drop out?
10th grade.
But it wasn't because of drugs back then? You just didn't want to?
Yeah, I mean, I was partying. Yeah, I was
you were.
hanging out with the wrong crew and partying, and finally just didn't have time for school anymore. My dad was a stickler. You're going to come home and you know, not go out with your friends all the time, and it just, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And but one thing he did teach me that I really appreciate, he's like, hey, if you want things in life, you need to work for them. And so that's what I done. And he worked us. He taught me how to work. And
How early were you guys finishing concrete?
I mean, our whole life.
You could finish concrete
No,
as
I would say could hit edges and stuff at 12, 13 years old. And then but he started us the right way. It was like, hey, you're going to learn how to run a shovel before you graduate to the next, and you're going to learn how to do this. And so it was years of pouring concrete. And then I had little odd jobs here and there, you know, in between, but I've never worked at a restaurant or anything like that. It's always just been manual labor.
You've done concrete since you were 15, so you've been doing it for 20 years.
Yes.
That's weird.
Yeah.
35-year-old doing concrete for 20 years.
Yeah.
It don't even sound right.
Yeah.
It's like Corey Carter that has got 20 years experience, but he's 28.
Yeah.
That don't add up.
All the
Corey.
overtime,
Corey, if you're watching this, that don't add up. You can't have that much experience.
Yeah. Quit it, Corey.
Yeah. He's like, I was at this place for 5 years. I was at this place for 10 years. I'm sitting here doing the math. I'm like, something ain't adding up.
And I think
he might have been like you though. He might have just been working for
well,
since he was out of school.
he works 23-hour days, and he counts
adds
each
up.
day as 8 hours.
Right.
That's how he has 20 years.
Well, he's been at Rudy a decade then, because he won't leave. He won't leave till 8 p.m.
It's always something. You're gonna have kids soon. All that'll stop. John would say, "Get your butt home quick."
Yeah, that's right. No, so yeah, you've done concrete for 20 years. So 2018, 2019, you're starting to get it kind of out there though. You're doing it every day.
Every day. 2018, 2019. Josh just got out of prison, I think, in 2018, and he was bad off. He was worse, strung out on drugs in prison than he was out, and he got out and started doing heroin. At this point, I had nothing to do with heroin, didn't know anything about heroin. My thing was meth and Xanaxes. I like to mix those two. And so then he got out and started doing the heroin and then introduced that. And then that was a game changer because, I mean, you could, after you do it for a little while, I mean, it's just like do everything you can to go get it, you're good for a little while. Then as soon as you run out, you're sick. And you can't do anything without it. Like so it turns into just chasing heroin every single day. And him and Cherry were living out in the country, and me and Olivia was up here in the city, and I was barely hanging on. And then ended up going out there, and Josh and Jared had this little stolen trailer in the woods, and they had it. it was stolen at his friend. It was at his friend's property, tucked in the back, and the trailer was stolen. And they had wires ran off of a light pole down onto the camper. So if you stepped on the ground and the step of the camper, it would shock the fire out of you. So you had to kind of jump up there all at once.
That's called messing around.
That's messing around 101 right there, boys. So then
I've heard this story multiple times. I didn't know your brothers were with you.
Yeah.
So when you went out the last time and it was bad, you were with your brothers?
Yep. I was with Josh and Jared, and they was both.
You left your phones at home, right?
Yeah.
Didn't you? And you left, took all the money, went out, used for a couple weeks or so, until you ran out of money pretty much?
Till ran completely out of money, was selling my stuff. So I didn't know till I had a storage unit, and I had 1 ton, couple trailers, and all my tools, where Olivia was going there and checking. She said every week she would go open it up and just kind of watch things disappear, because I was just selling stuff, just to, feed my habit. And I didn't find out till afterwards. She said she would go there and check and just see what I've sold that week. And
see if you're still alive too, right?
Yeah. And that's when I finally hit my rock bottom. I was like, man, I just woke up one day and I was like, what in the world am I doing here? How did it turn into this? So had a truck. I was sleeping in the truck and nowhere to go. And then I don't know what happened, but me and Josh kind of split ways. And I was just, one day I was like, I need to get help. I got to get help.
Yeah. I like this story though, because weren't you still were trying to scam the system though when you came to get help?
I still was. So I called Olivia and was like, actually I called Nick Hughes first. I was like, do you think Doug Walker will help me? I just need help. If he'll loan me the money to go to treatment. And because Nick has been telling me a little bit about Rob's ranch and everything. And I was like, if he'll loan me that money, I can pay him back. I can work and he can take $100 a week out of my check. I just need help. And I called Olivia. I was like, I'm going to treatment. They're going to help me go to treatment. So I'm going. I'm leaving this week. Complete lie. I just wanted.
You didn't know that you were going to get to go yet.
Yeah, I did not. I have not talked to anybody. Right. It was a complete lie. I just kind of told her out of impulse and just to try to, save what I had, the last little bit that I had. And she's like, well, you need to go get help because you're not coming here. I was like, okay, I'm going. So the next morning I went into the office and said, hey, I need to talk to Shane. And he's like, they called him. He told me, come back the next morning at 8:00. So I come back the next morning, 8:00, and at this time I'm still working. So I'm hit and miss with Valentine. I'll show up 3 or 4 days and then I'll miss 2 days. And then at this time I'm gone for 3 weeks. They ain't seen me. So I go in there, talk to Shane, tell Shane, look, I got a bad drug problem. Can you guys please help me? Whatever I have to do, I need help. He's like, absolutely. We can help you. Go back to work, and about noon, Doug calls me, says, hey, come to the office. I want to talk to you. Go in the office, sat down, and he's like, you want to know what's crazy? I just prayed this morning that God would use me.
Yeah.
And then Shane called me and said that you needed some help.
Yeah. Can I intercede right there?
Absolutely.
I've never told you this part of the story, I don't think. Maybe I have back in the day. But I'm in my office doing my thing, and Scott comes up to talk to me. And he's like, hey, man, I got a bad drug problem. I need help. Yada, yada, yada. You think you could get me some help or whatever? I walk into Doug's office. And I'm like, hey, Doug, Scott's in here, and he said he has a drug problem and he wants some help. Do you think we could help him? And Doug just starts smiling, which I was like, that's a real weird response to what I just said to you, I'm like, what's funny, or why are you smiling? He said, I've kind of been on a spiritual kind of, not lull, but just kind of in a drought, just a little bit. And he's like, I was praying. It might have even been that morning. I can't remember, but he's like, I've been praying that God will use me. And this is the second time that someone's come and asked me if they could get help today. it was just the timing of it was insane. But
yeah, I think that's where Doug kind of found his calling. And he had helped people in the past.
Yeah.
And he's always had a heart for it. But after God just kept opening doors.
Yeah.
And he just.
We all did in that moment in time. It was weird. I took Scott down to Rob's ranch. Doug said, take him to Walmart, get him some stuff because he's got nothing. He was living on the side of the creek right by Rudy. You remember that?
Yeah.
He literally was homeless, which I think he is again, by the way.
I always think about that guy. I wonder whatever happened to him.
It's sad, but picked him up off the side of a creek and took him to Walmart. I'm on cloud 9. I'm like, I'm gonna spend my own money. I ain't spending Doug's money. I'm joining in on this. I spent like $400 on this dude. This dude takes complete advantage of me. He's
been doing this for years, Craig.
He was like, well, I mean, if I'm gonna have all this stuff, I need a suitcase. I'm like, that makes sense. So we get him like 2 suitcases. He's like, well, I'm gonna need some snacks. I'm loading him up on snacks, clothes, shoes. I mean, literally, I load this dude up at Walmart. When I come back 30 or 90 days later, he's got none of it.
I remember that.
I show up. He's at graduation. He's wearing Nike shoes, a Columbia shirt. I know you didn't get that from Walmart, and you've been in rehab. Where'd you get that stuff?
Yeah.
They said, oh, Scott, if you leave your stuff out, Scott, take it. If you leave it on top of the washer and dryer, he will ransack your stuff.
That guy had laundry stacked up. I mean, but he always kept it nice. His room stayed real nice in treatment, but he would have clothes hoarded in there. But they never said anything because they had it stacked nice and looked nice. But yeah, that guy.
It's all other people's stuff.
Yeah.
But I came down to see him. I hadn't met you before, or if I did, I just didn't remember. And Doug said, Justin's down there, so say hi to him when you go down there. Make sure you go see Justin and say hi to him. So I didn't have a clue what you look like, didn't know anything except for some dude named Justin's down there as well. And so I go to pick Scott up, and you kind of come bouncing up to us. You're like, hey, man, what's up?
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope you're Justin. You know, this big dude's hugging me. I'm like, what's up, man? You know, this and that. And, man, I remember you praying for Scott, and it was powerful. I still remember the prayer to this day, some of the stuff you were praying for. And so this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because I don't even know if I've ever really dove deep into your time at Rob, because I know that God transformed your life at Rob's Ranch. You gave your life to Christ there, didn't you?
Yep.
And I don't know that I knew that, and I knew that the Justin I met was completely transformed. From the second I met you, you were who you are today, which you're a big teddy bear. But a lot of people were scared of you because they knew drug addict Justin.
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm kind of thankful I never knew you back then. But anyway, regardless, I want to hear about your transformation at Rob's Ranch, because I don't know that I've ever even asked you about it.
Well, it was actually at Sayre. It wasn't at the ranch itself. So I was out at Sayre, and we would go into chapel every morning, and we'd go in there and sing songs and you know, just hear a little verse and every day. And then it just kind of started tugging at my heart. So I went to Jeremy Gray, and I was like, hey, I want to ask Jesus to come into my heart. And so right then, he's like, excellent, let's do that. And right there, we got on our knees around that little chair, and we said our prayer, and I just started crying. And that's whenever I knew that my heart was softening a little bit, because I was a pretty rough guy for a lot of years. And
you were scamming the system for the first week or so. How many weeks in do you think that was?
I think that was probably the 4th weekend.
Okay, so you've been there some time.
Yeah, I had been there a little bit of time, and just, you know, and then God just started softening my heart a little bit. And then once I got over, so I'd done 30 days there. And then when I moved over to Rob's Ranch in Purcell, then I just started noticing changes about myself, how I would react to things. All of a sudden, I started caring about people. And before, it was always about Justin. Take for years. And then I was like, man, that's not like myself. It's really not. And
that's not who God created you to be.
Yeah.
I know you're walking in who God created you to be now, but I never knew anything other than that.
Yeah, I mean, I just never knew that I would be that soft, you know, and care about people that much, because even then, I mean, if you had something I wanted, I was going to take it.
Right.
No matter what. And I lived my life that way for X amount of years. And then now was giving. If I had something someone wanted, I was giving it to them. So I'm like, and I didn't, you know, when God transforms your heart and your mind, it's not like you see that, you know, it's over time, and then just you'll notice like, whoa,
yeah,
you know, that's different.
Yeah, there's a verse in Ephesians about how let the thief labor for his money, and it lists a whole bunch of stuff. But when you give your life to Christ, it's a complete 180. You do stuff completely opposite of what you were doing. So a thief wants to just take and not work for anything. He just wants it. But it says you need to go from that to labor for your money. So I don't know. I just thought of that. That's kind of cool. So you're at Rob's Ranch. God softens your heart at the 30 days. You went down to Purcell and did another 60 after that?
90.
You did another 90.
Yep.
You did 120 days.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, because I knew I needed it, and right at the end, COVID started hitting real hard. But in treatment, and actually a guy that I never talk about that I still talk to today is Jared Pace. Good friend of mine, and he was my roommate there. And I remember just laying there, and we'd always think, I thought it was so crazy. I'm like, man, what if I can actually stay sober for a whole year? We would lay there in bed and just talk about it. Like, I wonder, because we'd hear about these guys year, 2 years, they were coming and they were doing good in life, and, you know, God just kept blessing them. And I was just like, man, I wonder if that could ever be me, you know. And then looking back on it now, and August be 5 years, I'm just like, wow.
This August will be 5 years?
This August will be 5 years.
It was late into 2020? I guess so,
August 2020.
I was thinking it was early, like around COVID, but I guess not. I guess it was later, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And 5 years in some ways went by really fast, and in some ways it feels like we've been through 10 years together.
Yeah, but it's been 5 years.
And yeah. So, you know, I don't know that I still to this day, sometimes I think I know who's going to make it and who's not. But I'm kind of dropping that a little bit, because you just never know. And with addiction, but I was pretty certain when I met you that you were going to make it. Like, I just had a gut feeling. And I think it all boils down to who is willing to surrender their life to Christ. And I think I know that's part of the secret sauce.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like God talks to me in ways. Obviously it's not an audible voice, but when he tells me something's going to happen, I stand on it, and I know it's going to happen. Like, the first time that's ever happened to me. So before I got out of the ranch, my kids are still in DHS custody.
Right.
And Olivia's coming to get me from treatment, taking me to court. And at court, I have to run around the building, and she goes the other way because we're no contact. You know, she's visiting Piper. Mind you, this whole time she's never done drugs or anything. I'm the problem. And I've lied and manipulated her so much that she started believing what I was telling her, and she ended up getting the kids taken. You know, I mean, I was saying this in the meeting the other night. I would go as far as the DHS worker come in and said, hey, Justin, if you don't pass a drug test today, then we're taking your kids. And Olivia look at me and say, can you pass? And she's bawling, crying. I said, absolutely, I can pass. Drive all the way up there to fail the drug test, and then lie to her again, and then they come take the kids away because of it. You know, so I lied to her when she could have just left. We could have split ways. I could have just been like, no, I can't pass a drug test. And she could have left, and we would have never lost the kids. But I think about that now, and it gives me chills. Like, what was I thinking? So I'm about to get out of treatment. We're going to court, and they're saying, the caseworker's saying, hey, we're taking these kids. It's termination. Today's the day we're taking Justin's rights. Like, you are never going to be able to be with him. Like, it's not going to work out. And I was praying, and that's the first time like God really softened my heart. And so I'm praying that morning. And
you're sober and you're a Christian at this point. Yeah, this is after Rob's.
I'm in Rob's ranch.
Okay.
I'm at the end of my 90 days. I'm in Rob's ranch. I'm at my bed every morning. I get on my knees and I pray. So that morning I'm praying, like, let everything be okay at this court date. And I just start crying. I mean, I'm bawling, crying. I don't even know why I'm crying. And God tells me right there, I just know in my heart, they're not doing termination. They're not. And Olivia's like, no, Justin, the caseworker told me. I said, I don't care what that caseworker says. They're not more powerful than God. You know, if God tells me it's going to happen, and she thinks I'm crazy at this point. She's like, you're crazy. And she's like, Justin, they're telling me this. And I'm just like, I don't care what they say. I don't care what that judge says. I don't care. So we go to the court date, that same court date, and they tell me we're moving away from termination. If Justin keeps doing what he's doing, then it's going to work out. So that day, I knew, like, if God put it on my heart, it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And moving forward, I have times where that's going to happen, that I can tell you story after story. Me and Olivia go by our first house, and I'm like, it's going to happen. She's like, it's not going to happen. I'm like, it's going to happen. And we get our first house. I'm like, we're going to own a sober living one day.
You know, well, I was going to try to let the story build a little bit up to faith over fear, but we can get into it because I remember early in you telling me, yeah, man, I'm going to do my own sober living. I'm going to do this. I'm like, you've been sober 5 minutes. You need to relax. No, but I don't think it was, obviously it wasn't that early in, but it was pretty early in. Do you remember? You might have even told me at Rob's ranch that you were going to do a sober living. Do you remember?
I think it was a little bit after that. It was
okay.
After, because I was working. Remember, I worked for 10 months.
Yeah.
With Gustavo.
Right.
And then I talked to you. I'm like, man,
still scamming people. You called me. You were in downtown Oklahoma City. Can you take me by the courthouse? I gotta do something. So I'm thinking the courthouse that's like 3 blocks from you. So yeah, I'll come get you. I said, all right. You said, oh, it's in Minco. Or Union City.
Yeah, Union City.
I'm like, that's 45 minutes from us. All right, let's go. It was
I'll never forget that, because that was the first time I got off probation since I was probably 17 years old.
That was cool.
And they said, you're done. You don't owe us nothing. And you got to be there whenever we was together when that happened. Yeah. So I always remember that. Like, the freeing feeling I felt, I'm like, that's when I started seeing my life change a little bit. I'm like, wow. You know, I'm 30 some odd years old and I'm off probation.
Yeah. Like, I remember that drive because I was asking you about prison the whole way. I'm like, what's prison like? You're like, man, but you did county jail, right?
Yeah.
You didn't do prison.
Well, I went to prison. I was in Oklahoma County for 18 months.
Yeah. And county's the rough one, right?
Yeah. County is.
Why is it rough? Because people are in and out and.
Yeah, and you don't go outside, so seeing no sunlight for 18 months, and just the way you're locked down.
Right.
I mean, prison's a breeze. I mean, and mind you, I wasn't in no dangerous prisons or nothing like that, so I can't speak on that.
Right.
But I mean,
were you on drugs when you were there?
Yeah, if I could get my hands on something, right. I would.
But I was skipping around, but I remember early in you were wanting to do a sober living, and I don't think that you ever wavered from wanting to do your own sober living. You went, I was about to say Pello, but you went to Gratitude.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I went
and you did some time there too, and you had a family, and
yeah, I was there, and then I went to see my counselor, and he's like, Justin, you need to go home.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people try to rush it. I've never seen one person it pay off, them trying to rush the steps to being sober. And I think you did it. I don't remember how much time you did, but I felt good about it. Because most people with a family would have been home.
Yeah, I think I was only like 4 months in, and I was planning on staying the whole year. But that's
7 months sober.
Yeah.
Right, you were.
Yeah, and I was planning on staying the whole year, and then, I mean, because my thought process wasn't, let's get out of here. My thought process was like, I'm here until somebody that knows more than me tells me not to be here anymore.
Right. And you were going home to a stable environment too, because that still blows my mind that Olivia doesn't do drugs or never did drugs and was with you. You know, a lot of times people are going home to their drug addict wife or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, it was a good environment.
Yeah,
it was. And I told Olivia too when I got out of treatment, I was like, you have to go to Al-Anon.
Yeah.
Because
Tell people if they don't know what that is.
Al-Anon is a program that works alongside AA. It's like for the family of alcoholic and drug addicts. Like, so I'm a drug addict and alcoholic, but I always identify, alcohol with drugs because it's the same mindset.
Yeah.
So I needed her to learn how I think, because I could pull the wool over her eyes like nobody's business. I mean, done it for years, and she just did not understand. And so after that, she understands my thought process now.
Yeah, that's good. Which I finally did, by the way. I don't know that I've ever circled back around and talked to you about this, but I really struggled at first when, we'd be going around the circle and you'd say, Justin Ralls, alcoholic. It's like, well, you're 5 years sober. You're not an alcoholic. You're like, I'll always be an alcoholic. I didn't like that back then because I'm like, Christ has freed you from that. You're a new creation, yada, 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 which is true. By the way, it is true. But you have a gene that's different than a lot of people that lives inside of you. And you could be 20 years sober and drink a beer and completely spin off. Yeah. Completely. 20 years sober, you got something about your genetic composition. I don't know if that's the right way to say it or whatever. You cannot drink alcohol or do drugs. You will run the risk of completely spinning off, right?
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you just in the humility of knowing the way that you're wired, you identify as an alcoholic. Is that right?
And for the new guy sitting in the room, too. So the new guy
can't feel comfortable if he's 24 hours sober. You want him to feel comfortable being there.
That's right.
Okay.
And another thing is I always tell my guys, I'm like, well, I don't drink, but when I do, I turn into somebody else, and that guy smokes crack. I mean, that's just
and that's the truth, man.
That is the truth.
We were my Sunday school eats dinner every other Thursday night, and we have an alcoholic in there, 13 years sober. He said the first time he ever got drunk, 14 years old, blacks out, throws up all night, wakes up, and the very next morning goes out to get drunk again. The very next morning. And obviously his story ended with a meth addiction. But that's so different than everybody else sitting at the table. There's other people that can drink and they don't do that. Well, what's different about him and you? I'm finally starting to understand it.
Yeah, some people can stop and some people can't. So I look back now as a younger guy, like 17, 18 years old. We're at house parties back when we had house parties, and all my friends would get drunk, pass out, go home. Well, I would get drunk and then party all night long, even drinking alcohol. Me and several other guys that I look back now, and all of them had an issue. We would drink all night long, all through the night into the next morning. And I remember my friends, we would go around, we'd be out of alcohol, and we'd go around at the party, all the empty beers, and drink all the stuff that people don't drink out of the bottom.
I'm too much of a germaphobe for that.
Yeah,
that's disgusting.
I mean, that's just.
But you're whacked out, so you don't care. You just want to get.
We just drink, and I couldn't stop. So when these guys are asleep, passed out, I'm still drinking. So right. I look back on that now, I'm like, yeah, I can see.
I want to get into your brothers later, but we've kind of bounced around. But we started talking about sober living. So since I've known you as sober, Justin, you have talked a lot about wanting to have your own sober living house.
Yep.
And I'm fully confident at this point of watching your story that that's part of your calling. But Faith Over Fear is what you named it. I'm wearing a Faith Over Fear shirt. When did it start? Kind of talk through how that started. How's it going? All that, whatever you want to talk about with Faith Over Fear.
It's going good. It's been a dream of mine. I mean,
yeah.
We talked about it, and I would always tell you, hey, one day, I'm going to have a sober living house. And God always put that on my heart. And I felt like I was pretty good with men.
Yeah.
Just like at Rudy, like we started out with just a few men on my crew that struggled with addiction, and that opened up to something big today. But I knew that was what it was supposed to be. And you would always tell me, hey, whenever it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen.
Right.
And now I believe that. And I know it will happen. It'll happen easy if it's God's timing and it's God's will. So I prayed about it, and it was probably a couple years praying about it and, trying to live that out. And then I when it was time, me and Olivia had a little bit of money saved up, and I said, it's time. And mind you, me and Olivia with money, we're opposites. So I'm like, oh, we got 20,000, let's give that away. And she's like, shut your mouth. When that's our money, that's our family, and so we kind of balance each other out, because if it was up to me, I hate money and I'll give it all away to somebody that needs it, and she's like pretty responsible with it. So we get the first sober living house, we lease it. At this time, we're living in a house that we bought, and it's 5-bedroom house. I'm pouring all these driveways, and she's like, man, this would be a good sober living house, Justin, because it's corner lot. And I'm like, so that got the wheels a turning up here. I'm like, okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to buy another house, and we're going to put the sober guys here. And she's like, that ain't going to happen. How's that going to happen? She's like, you got to get another loan. That's another, we're credit ain't real good yet. How's that going to? I said, that's going to happen. That's what we're doing. So we leased that house that we was leasing. We started the sober living house. It was going really well. I was like, okay, we're going to lease this house. If everything goes well, then I'll buy another house. So I got ahead of myself, but did it for a year, went really well, ended up liking it. And there's struggles in sober living. Some weeks you're like, why in the heck am I even doing this? And then some weeks you're on top of the world. Yeah. Because you see guys' lives changing.
Yeah. We definitely are jumping around, but the success rate of sobriety is really bad. Yeah. Unfortunately. But I hate to do this, but I want to go back to Rudy. I completely forgot. We're not really telling the story in like chronological order, but I completely forget that you get sober, come back to Rob's Ranch, and at this point we had just a normal company. It's just a construction company. Yeah. The owners were Christians. They are Christians. Love helping people. Good guys, but we didn't know how to help people. We sucked so bad at it. Doug bought a trailer for somebody and put it out behind Rudy, and it just turned into a meth trailer. And Doug did a lot of stuff wrong before we started figuring out how to do it. But one thing that I noticed when you got out of Rob's Ranch, and specifically, I can say his name now because he's doing so good, Jax. I noticed with Jax, he spun off one time, and we're like, where did you even get drugs? He's like, oh, from one of the truck drivers. He got it. I said, you got drugs at Rudy? Yeah. He's like, yeah.
I don't know why that was so surprising to you. See,
going to Doug's office, I'm like, we're spending how much to help these guys? And then we're giving them jobs, which is good, but they can get drugs at oh, you can't get drugs here. You can get drugs here. No, you can. And as we started learning, it's like, oh crap, you can. Anyway. So we started dreaming up what it would look like to have a sober crew. Yeah. Because we want to help people, but once they come back from Ralls,
send them to treatment, we need a healthy place for them to reside and be employed.
And when I say safe, I don't even necessarily mean hard drugs, but you might have the guys that are like, hey, you want to go grab a beer after work or whatever, which we can't have that for you. Yeah. So not necessarily people on hard drugs or anything, but just an environment where they're not going to do that. They're going to be understanding if you got to go to drug court or because you guys are free and you're sober and you're a new creation, but you got baggage that follows you when that does happen.
Somebody that don't live that and has not lived that don't understand.
They don't understand it. They're frustrated that a person's got to split for an hour to go to court. So you were a concrete finisher for Gustavo. Yep. And you could have very easily been a foreman. You could do everything foreman could do. And so we pitched it that you would become a foreman and everybody that's in sobriety would work for you. And we called it our sober crew, which it wasn't just like the most popular idea ever. And people were really scared to call it the sober crew. And what connotations does that come with? And would you guys not be there was a lot of fear. but we did it. And do you remember what year we did it? Maybe 21?
I think 21. I would say that's a safe year to say.
I think so too. And it was awesome, wildly popular.
Yeah.
You had probably 5 dudes on your crew that were in sobriety or in recovery, and you guys were putting out a lot of yards too.
Yeah, it was definitely a competition.
You called me. How many yards is Kuko doing tomorrow? 30.
I'm doing 35.
You were definitely out to prove yourself at first. There was some stuff we had to work through with that because it was almost too much. You were trying too hard to prove yourself.
Yeah, it was, and what came with that too. I lived the life that I live, and anytime something good would happen, I was waiting for someone to rip the rug out from underneath me. So I remember having those conversations. Craig, you think they're going to fire me? Craig, do you think this is working? I was so worried.
I thought you were
about
joking.
losing my job.
You would call me, "Hey man, is Shane mad at me?" No. Oh, okay. I just hadn't talked to him in a week. But that's normal. Yeah. You're not going to talk to the vice president every day.
Yeah.
You know. I forgot about that. You did carry some insecurities at first.
Big time.
But we went from 1 sober crew to 2. Who was the second one?
Jared was second.
Jared was second?
Josh was third.
Okay.
Or no, Jared was second. Terry was third.
Right.
Josh was fourth.
Which, if people don't know, which they don't, nobody knows, those are your brothers and Terry's your dad.
Yep.
Here in a second, let's get into your brother's testimonies, because that's incredible that what God's doing through your entire family. He's changing a generation of Ralls. That your family tree won't ever look the same. But let's pin mark that. Keep talking about Rudy. So we go from 1 crew to 2, which, by the way, Jared, if you're listening to this, Jared was a complete sissy about it.
Yeah.
I can't do curb. Yeah. I came out to Nichols Hills. His curb was perfect. I said, you can do curb. You're out of your mind. Well, he was just scared. He didn't want to mess up.
Well, there was a little bit of me lying too, when we can get started, because Jared, Bills, and Shane and all them, can they do curb and everything? Yeah, absolutely they can. Me knowing that they couldn't, but I knew they could if they was put on the spot. They're concrete finishers, and they were good at it. And I knew that they would be okay, so I kind of just threw them out there. I threw Jared out there. For the first month, I went over there and would cut his curb for him and then jump back and do my job.
And I forgot about that. When you were foreman, you would kind of come over and help Jared.
Yeah, I babied him a lot just because I wanted to see him succeed. And I've pulled way back now, because even for a couple years after we started, my dad got going, then I would baby them and watch their jobs and make sure, but I've let all the way go now. So.
Yeah, well, you have to. Your role is way bigger now. But so we went from 1 sober crew at Rudy to 2 to 3, and now is there 4 or is
5?
There's 5.
Yeah.
How many people at Rudy do you think is in recovery?
I would probably say 80.
80 is I think the number that's second chance employees and sober.
I would say
is 80 the second chance in general.
No, I would say 80 is people that's in recovery that we've hired.
Wow.
We've got a ton. I would say we're closer to 90, 95 second chance.
Wow.
So me and Stephanie kind of go through it all the time. Go through these guys all the time. But I would say, through traffic and concrete crews and ready mix, dump truck drivers, there's a lot.
I was blown away the first time that we were at like 30 or 40. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't believe we had 30 people there in recovery. I was like, that felt like a huge number. I can't believe it's at 80 and 90
I remember the first
now.
time we calculated it up, we was at like 30% of the company.
The less than that when we first did it. The whole thing, where we got our model was from B&H Construction, and they got 750 employees, and half of them are second chance employees. And when they told me that, I was thinking, there's absolutely no way.
How could we ever get there?
Yeah, how could we do that? Where do you even find 300 people that need a second chance? And man, it's only been a couple years, and you guys, that percentage keeps creeping up and up. I mean, you guys are probably at 30% now or so.
I would say, yeah, at least, if not closer to 50. But I mean, we have a lot. I mean, it's to the point now that Alejandra, the lady that works the front desk at Rudy Construction, she'll call me and be like, "Hey, we got this guy. He said he just got out of treatment and he's needing a job." Or, this guy come up here said he has a drug problem. He's wanting to talk to you. And mind you, this is just word that spread.
Right. You don't even know these guys.
Yeah. And they're like, talk to Justin, go to Rudy Construction, or talk to Jax. Jax goes out there to Rob's Ranch. Me and my sober living guys, we go out there with them sometimes when we can. And I mean, it's just in the recovery world, because it's like its own little population. The word's out there. Rudy Construction's where you want to be.
Yeah. It's not a kept secret anymore, is it?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. So a guy named Jonathan Terry, he's a driver there. His wife works at a detox facility, and he tells me all the time, he's like, "Man, your name's out there. Like, they're saying they want to come here, and they're going to call Justin." And he's like, "You guys got a pretty good reputation." I was like, "Good."
That's good. And for people that don't know, I mean, we felt like we hit the gold mine. It doesn't get much better than helping people. First of all, that feels better than any success a company can experience, is helping people. But the reality is it's hard to find good labor. There's just not out there. And we get these guys that are good people. They've done bad things, and we give them a second chance, give them a job, and they're really good employees. And there's some stuff that comes along with it, obviously. You got relapses, and you got people that carry 20 years of thinking the wrong way and having a bad mindset that you got to kind of work on. But you don't have some of the other problems. You don't got a guy that works 30 days and say, "I need a raise."
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great business model, because you take a man that's broken and has nobody and believe in him and build him up, just kind of like myself. You know what I mean? They're going to love you.
Right.
They're going to be loyal to you.
Work hard for you.
Yeah.
And so, man, we got to be a part of something so special in time. I feel like those 3 years we were firing on all cylinders. I want to tell the Living Faith story real quick, but we got to get back to your brothers. I want you to talk about your brothers. So we were doing that for a couple of years, and it was going well. And we hired a couple people out of Living Faith, which Living Faith was a prison ministry, which we thought was like, well, it's probably close to the same. All our guys that are in sobriety have done jail or prison time, so it's probably really similar. So we hired a couple of dudes out of it, and we liked it. It was going well, and they came up and told us that they're shutting the doors, and we were like, that can't happen. No. What do we got to do for that not to happen? And the old owner of it said, "Well, create a 501c3 and I'll give it to you." So I drive back to Rudy. I'm like, "Hey, Doug, this guy said he'd give it to us." Doug's like, "Well, how much does he want for it?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. That don't sound right to me either. Let me go back." I'm like, "How much do you want for this thing?" He's like, "I don't want nothing. Just, it was through a series of meetings. I'm kind of getting a high level view, but he's like, "No, I don't want anything. Just create a 501c3 and give it to you." Do you know what year that was? I don't really remember.
I want to say 23.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
We took over that ministry, which, as it turns out, quite a bit different. I didn't realize how different it would be. We still love it. You go every Tuesday night.
Yep.
Still love it, but it is different. Someone that's been locked up for 20 years needs different care than somebody who's getting sober. It's
a different level of care. Completely.
I thought it would be more similar, but it doesn't matter, because through that, very, very quickly, Doug's talking to me one day, and he's like, "Man, I got this house in Shawnee." He's like, "I bought it from a daycare. It's got a parking lot next to it. People just moved out. Let's pray about doing a sober living." I'm like, "Doug,
how more clear does it need?
You got a house with a parking lot next to it? Are you crazy? We're doing a sober living."
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, Doug prayed about it for 5 minutes, I think, and we were off to the races. So now Living Faith is got 2 branches to it. They call it Living Free and Living Sober.
Yep.
Living Free is the prison ministry, and then Living Sober is the sober living. So they got 4.
I want to say they got 6.
Like, oh my gosh, all these numbers. Even I've been gone for 6 months. All these numbers still.
Yeah, I think they're working on number 6 right now. Man. I think it might be close to being done, but I want to say there's 6 of them.
Wow. And you're certainly part of the family, though. You got Faith Over Fear, but it's all one family.
It is. We all originated out of Rudy.
Right.
I mean, and we all come together. That's what I tell my guys all the time, and Doug too. I mean, we're all a family, and I don't like to look at it as we're different, because we got men from Living Faith that live there, from living out with Jax and them at their sober livings, and then guys at Faith Over Fear, but we're all one.
Yeah.
And that's what we tell them. We go to Rob's Ranch stuff too, and we kind of tell them like that as well. We're all under the same umbrella, right? I should say Well, and there's no shortage of need at all. There's thousands of people every day that need a place to stay. And we struggled for years. Looking back, I didn't think about this, but for years when we were trying to get people sober, we couldn't find a house for them. We'd call Pello and call... and there's houses out there, but with our vision.
Right. Christ-centered.
Christ-centered and loving on these guys. And because most sober living houses you go to, they fail a drug test, they're out of there. Right. You got to go. You got 24 hours to leave. And that's okay. I mean, that's okay. That's their vision. But I try to love people through their mistakes. Right. And that's one thing Doug has taught me, and you as well, is, we don't just give up on people. Right. And
well, that's dirty for me to take credit for that, because that's Doug Walker. Yeah. And I am a better person for having been around Doug for 5 years.
We both are.
But that's Doug. That guy, God gave that dude an endless supply of grace. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the bottom of that grace yet.
I'll be fired up about stuff. I take it to Doug, and he's like, okay, what did you expect? I'm like, get mad with me.
What's wrong with you, man?
He never does. So, I mean,
but it's a big family. Faith Over Fear, Living Faith is a big family. Yeah, which is good. That's the way it should be. There's even with other people, even with Pello and everybody, we're all trying to help people. We all want to see people give their life to Jesus. That's ultimately what it's about. Yeah. That's a Doug Walker quote. I want to see people sober, but I much rather see them saved.
Yeah, we want to bring them in. We want them to get sober. That's the goal, because I mean, all these guys, they have some issues, and most of these guys, these drug issues. When we can clean that up, we can clean up all of this. Then it's a direct tunnel to where we need to be, and then that's when we start introducing the Bible.
Right. And this is kind of a dark turn that I'm about to take it, but it is what it is. People need to understand that this addiction is going to take a lot of people down. Mm-hmm. And we lost our friend Shelby October 2023. Yep. I think. And he was saved.
Yeah, he was saved.
Me and you went and watched him get baptized. He was at Bible study every week. I mean, he was 100% saved, and I miss him, and I can't believe it happened. I wish it didn't happen. The short story is he went out and relapsed, and I think there was fentanyl in it, and which is a whole nother topic. I'm so thankful that you got sober before fentanyl was on the streets, but he died in his bathroom, and I hate it. I miss him. I can't believe that we lost him, but I'll be in heaven with him one day.
Yeah.
It's all,
100%. And
we've lost brothers that probably aren't saved though, huh? And that's worse.
Yeah, that's way worse. I mean, the ultimate goal is to get them saved.
Right.
I mean, 100%. And Shelby was and I still always think about when we were sitting in that church, you say, Justin, we've only ever been here twice. Once was to baptize him, and the next was to bury him for his funeral. But I mean, that was hard, and that was a hit directly.
That was a big hit. Mm-hmm. I still, unfortunately, can relive that night in my head, every detail of it. I can still remember the phone call that you called me. Yeah. I called Pastor Andy, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, just go. I can't give you any advice, but go be with Justin. So.
Yeah, and that guy was, and I know this is probably a little morbid joke, but those guys that had to pull him out of that tiny bathroom, he was a big fella, so like good night, like.
Why?
I mean, he's just Shelby. He was just such a great guy, but he was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my memories because he was an all-state wrestler, and
I forget.
He was
about
a
that.
big guy, and he was dangerous.
Yeah, you saw him roll some people up on a job site too.
Yeah,
you goofballs. I got a call one day. Hey, you guys up here on Kelly? Yeah. You got guys on the side of the street wrestling. Well, that's my sober crew. They're probably just messing around. I hope they are. Yeah. Call you. What are you doing up there wrestling? PJ won't stop trying to wrestle people. Yeah. Shelby rolled him up. Didn't PJ say that's a bad? What did he say?
He said that's a bad memory. Well, PJ would smoke everyone at wrestling. Well, Shelby pulled up, and he was our saw cutter at the time, and he pulled up and wrestled PJ to the ground and started humping his leg and stuff. It was such a good time. And
PJ was a good wrestler too.
PJ was, but Shelby was just a 300-pounder, and he was dangerous.
Right.
He was so dangerous, and he was just so strong. He had them big old hands, and he was really skilled. And Heather, PJ's wife, is like, "Well, PJ, why didn't you? What would you?" He's like, "With Shelby, he's like, you just let him have your way, because the harder you go, the harder he's gonna go, and you don't want that."
Man, I miss Shelby. But yeah, so it takes people down, and but one of the most important things is that their eternal souls are with Christ, and so yeah, you guys help people get sober, but the vision is not that. I mean, we want them sober and saved.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get back and talk about your brothers. We're skipping all around, but man, this is such a powerful story. So you get sober first in 2020, and the first thing you do, I mean, I don't know, not the first thing, but early in, you start reaching out to your brothers because they're both still addicts.
Well, yeah. So I get out. I'm literally not even 3 days out of Rob's ranch, and my aunt calls me and says, "Hey, your brother's over here. He's on my couch. He's withdrawing, and he says that he wants to get some help." So immediately, me and my friend Jared Pace, we rush over there. I'm like, start telling him, what helped me. We both start telling him, and I'm like, "Well, you need to go to treatment." He's like, "Okay, I'll go to treatment." And I'm like, he's like, "When?" I was like, "Right now." So we literally put him in the truck and drive him to Rob's ranch. So he had been laying on that couch for 3 days. So I was like, now's my chance. And he didn't even know what that looked like. He didn't know what any of this was going to look like. And I was like, "You're going to go to treatment." I didn't tell him nothing about sober living at first. And then a month into treatment, I was like, "You need to go to sober living." And he took direction and went to treatment, did a year of sober living. And he was working at B&H.
I forget about that.
Yeah, he's worked at B&H.
Shout out Ronnie and Donnie.
Yeah.
Our bad for stealing him.
Yeah.
Man, you went to church with Ronnie and Donnie at first. Do you still go to church with them?
No, I go to Elevate.
Okay, but you went there at first, and I was like, "Hey, did you see Donnie this weekend?" "Yeah." "You didn't say hi to him, did you?" "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Don't even look at him." I was so scared that you were gonna go to B&H. I forgot Jared was at B&H.
Yeah, he was, and I'm sorry, Ronnie and Donnie, but I begged him to come. I was like, "Jared, you got to come over here, man." He's like, "I don't know, I like it here, and I'm doing well here." I said, "I don't care. You're coming over here."
Right.
Because I knew that was our vision to get, and
He came and worked for you, right?
Yep. He came over there, and at that time we had started the first sober crew, and he come, and mind you, he didn't even know how to finish concrete. He had never really worked with my dad.
Oh, it was you and Josh and Terry?
Yep.
He wasn't a part of it, really?
No, he was too young.
Okay.
And so I taught him how to finish concrete, and then once I started, I mean, he's a Ralls. He just picked right up and started doing it, and kind of taught him, and then that's when we opened the second crew. But back to Josh. Josh was a little harder case.
Yeah.
He was years of hard drug addiction. And
yeah. And Jared, real quick, before we get to Josh, Jared got sober and has stayed sober.
Yep.
And so did you.
Yep.
But that's not common.
No.
So we're about to get into Josh's story, which is really, I think, probably more common. Would you say?
Yes. I mean, yeah, relapses I mean, it happens in recovery. I mean, that's just part of it. But what we didn't mention, it has to be a heart change.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the biggest thing, like I've come to find. I want everybody to work the 12 steps, because when the 12 steps clean your life up and brings you right to God. And me and you can't do anything. It has to be a heart change directly from the Holy Spirit. I mean, that's the way I'm going to stand on that to the day I die. I mean, that's what changes people.
Right.
Is the Holy Spirit has to come in and change your heart.
Right.
And that's what happened with Jared, and I feel like that's what happened with me. And, you know, just tired of living that way and trying something different and actually having a chance.
Right.
You know, these guys, you get most of these guys that come in most companies or places, they're not educated. They got tattoos everywhere. They got a few felonies, and most people are going to be like, society is going to be like, no, thank you.
Right.
You know, we don't want that style of people around here. We don't want that caliber of people. So, I mean, so those are my people.
Right.
So
yeah, same with me. So Josh, he goes to Rob's Ranch the first time, or I can't remember if it was the first or second time, but which time did he go with both eyes punched out?
yeah, so I had been talking to him, and
was that the first time though?
Yeah, that was the first time, and so he never actually went to Rob's, because I tried to get him to go. He did go for a week, and I was like, Josh, look, man, you need to get help. You need to get help, and he's like, well, I want help, and he just wasn't ready, and went to Rob's Ranch for a week. After a week, left. Sherry come picked him up, and they went back out into their addiction, and then I was like, Josh kept on him. So he'd call me every once in a while, and he's like, how you doing? I'm doing good, man. I'm like, Josh, you need to get some help. You need to get some help, bro. I was like, there's a better life out there. You know?
Right.
Praying for him. You would always pray for him. I would pray for him. And then one day he called me and said, hey, I'm going to California. Sweet.
I forget about California.
Yeah, he goes to California, and he goes out there for 3 months. Comes back, me and you's pumped up. I mean, we're on top of the world. Comes back, and he comes to Sober Living and gets a job. Never tells us that he's on Suboxone.
Right.
And he works for, I think, a month, and he leaves one day to lunch, and he goes get some Suboxone, and I knew right then. The next day I go to pick him up for work, no answer. He moves out of Sober Living and goes to a motel room. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So
I still remember that.
I asked him to take a drug test. He gets mad.
Yeah. I was like, I remember being like, you know where Josh is at. He's at a hotel, and you don't want to go get him? Because I'm like, let's go get him.
Yeah.
Let's go drag him out of that hotel room. Which is crazy, because I'm skinny, and Josh is bigger than you now.
He was at the time skinny too. So
that's true. But he was spun out though.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're not going to go pick him up. Are you out of your mind? That's your brother. And you're like, Craig, it don't work like that. And obviously back then I just still wasn't quite understanding it, but I thought it was crazy. I was ready to go get him.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, so he goes to the hotel, he goes out for a while. I forget about that. You remember how long? Maybe 6 months or so?
No, yeah. Well, he goes out for maybe about a month.
Okay.
And then he's sleeping behind that motel. Nowhere to go.
Oh, my God.
They're sleeping behind that motel every night.
Is Sherry with him at this
yeah,
point?
Sherry's with him.
That's his wife.
Yeah, his wife. And mind you, they've been together since they were 12 years old, on and off.
Right.
And she's with with him through everything. And they're sleeping behind this motel. And then he called me one day, and he's like, because at that time I knew, like, it hurt my heart, but I knew I had to cut him off. Like, hey, yeah, I have to set those boundaries, you know, like, because he's got to hit his rock bottom. And he's called me and says, hey, I'm going back to California. I said, good. Whatever you need help with, I'll help you, but you need to get help. If you're not helping yourself, I'm not helping you.
Right.
And he goes back to California, and then that, you know, when you know, and he goes out there and he really changes. I can hear it in his voice, the way he's talking. I'm like, okay, you know, that's when God really starts to change his heart. And he finally starting to take direction, because at first he's like, I don't need to do sober living. I don't need to do this. And he's real hyped up. He's like, a month into recovery, he's already building his dream home,
right.
You know, type mindset.
Right.
So I'm like, this time he's slowed down. He wants to do things right. So I'm like, okay, it might stick. And then when he comes back, I could see the change in him. And I was like, okay.
I could too.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yep. And
The first time that he rode in my truck with me, he was still wiry. He had all these little one-liners and stuff, and I was like, man, I don't know about all this.
Yeah.
And the second time he came back, you could tell it was an actual
he was
change.
slowed way down and was willing to take direction, and ended up doing 3 or 4 months out there in treatment, and then coming back and going to sober living for 9 months. And him and Sherry went to a couple sober living. I picked him up every day for work, and he was taking direction, doing what he didn't want to do. And that's the biggest thing for us to grow. We got to get uncomfortable, and we got to do because our first reaction is to do what we've always done because that's comfortable.
Yeah.
So we got to get outside of that.
Right. So, you, your 2 brothers, and now your dad, how's your sister doing?
She's doing good.
Your sister's
She's
sober,
still in sober living. Yep.
she was the last one.
Yep. She was the last. Her and my mom are actually in the same sober living right now.
Wow. So God is moving through the entire family. The whole family's sober. We have prayed and prayed and prayed for years for your sister. So the fact that she's in sober living is such a miracle.
Yeah.
And there will be grandkids. I think about this a lot. There'll be great grandkids that never met you, that would have never imagined who you guys were.
Yeah.
Think about that. Your kids are going to know Christ, their kids, and they won't even believe that their grandpa was a heroin addict.
Yeah. And I think about it now, and I think about the guys that gave me experience and strength and hope. And, life's going to get better. Life's going to change, and to be patient and wait on it is the best thing.
Yeah. I've never seen it work out for somebody who's trying to work a recovery program. I've never seen it work out when they rush it. Yeah. Trying to rush out of sober living, or don't want to go to sober living, trying to rush out of rehab, trying to rush to be successful. I've seen a lot of that. I want to be a manager. I want to be, it's like, you got to slow way down, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about you do the same thing for 20 years. You don't change your mindset and the way that you interact with people and all that. You don't change it in 3 months. You can't. It's not possible. It takes a long time. But so, man, your family's doing good, which makes me so happy. I love your whole family. Sober, saved. You're running a sober living house, working on 2 houses now. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know who will listen to this, but you're wanting to expand, right?
Yeah, so it's okay. Yeah, I think it's pretty much in the works. First sober house we got, and that goes back to Olivia telling me, well, that can't happen.
Yeah.
And so we go and we bought another house, moved the guys into our house, and everything's going well. And I'll be the first to tell you, and we've talked about it a million times, Craig, I'm like, I'm only ever going to have one house. I'm going to have one house. Well, I'm getting phone calls every day and turning people away.
Yeah, talk about your vision, though, for only having one house, because your heart behind it was really good.
Yeah, I wanted to be intentional with each man and be in their lives, and not just, I don't want to turn it into money.
Right.
I never wanted it to be about the money. I have a job. I'm not scared to work. Like I want it to be about helping people.
Right.
And I do a lot more for my sober house than other sober living. Not saying I don't know anything about others. I'm just saying I do a lot for my guys, and I want to see them succeed. That's what it's about. It's just about helping them in their journey. It's never going to be about money.
Right. We're not here to badmouth other sober livings either, no. But some get big where it's hard to be intentional with every man in the house, which is just a different model. Not talking bad about it. You got to hire more staff and stuff like that. But that wasn't your vision. You wanted to stay small, stay intentional, you wanted a one-on-one relationship with all the guys in the house. And that's a good vision. But I don't think it has to go away because you have 2 houses.
No, and then that's what I have, that house, and then that house right next to it, come up corner lot, same setup, everything, come up for sale. And I'm like, passing by it for a month, I'm like, God, is that what you want?
Right.
And I always talk to him just like that. I'm like, because it's just like popping out at me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
God, is that what you want? So I pray about it. I tell Olivia about it. She just starts laughing.
Yeah.
She's like, that ain't going to happen. There's no way. We're not getting that loan. That's not going to happen. And how are you going to pay for that, Justin? I mean, and I always have these wild, crazy visions, and I don't know how we're going to pay for it, but it's going to happen.
Right.
You know, well, it's going to cost $2,000 to get beds in there. I don't care. We're going to do it. And you know, kind of just talk to my circle of people and that I trust and that I love, and, you know, and everybody's like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, why would you not do that? And so we go, and it's going to happen.
There's a need. There's such a need out there for a good Christ-centered, sober living. There's good ones out there, but when we were helping people, we were calling every house trying to find a bed, and there's just not beds. There's a lot of people. Have you seen fentanyl play any sort of role in the AA game right now? Like, is it, I don't even know how to ask this question. Is it scaring people where they want to get sober? Is it, do you see any effect from fentanyl?
Yes. So I have 6 guys in drug court at Rudy Construction that work there, and that I work with on a day-to-day basis. And I was actually sitting in court last week with one of them, a friend of mine he's going to Stillwater to work. We got a contract fixing to start out there, and I wanted him to be able to drug test at the Stillwater location drug court. And so I'm there to talk to the judge with him, and they actually stood up and said, hey, there's free Narcan here.
Yeah.
Please take it. There's at least like 1 person or 2 person dying in that program every week due to fentanyl. So, I mean, they're like, stood up right up and said, hey, there's free Narcan here. Please take one. Even if you don't think you're going to use Narcan, please take one.
Right.
That way you might be passing by somebody and they're having an overdose and you have one on you and you can save somebody.
Yeah.
It's such a crisis.
Since Shelby passed, I keep Narcan on me.
Yeah, I keep it in the sober house. We got it all throughout Rudy. I mean, just because you never know. I mean, it's in everything. It's in meth. It's they're stamping all these pills with it now. A drug addict might think they're going to take a Loratab, or anybody in that, you know, hey, I need a Loratab because my knee hurts or something, and they take it and it's a pressed pill with fentanyl in it, and it kills you right away. It happens all the time. I mean, it's in everything, and it's tragic.
It is, man. I'm so thankful that you got sober before it was on the streets.
Yeah.
But there's, I say all that to say this, there's never been a greater need ever. Well, I shouldn't say ever, but there's a gigantic need for sober livings right now with fentanyl running rampant on the streets. So there ain't nothing wrong with opening another house. I'm proud of you for doing it, and you'll still be intentional with them, and 2 houses is not too big.
Yeah, it's a little scary because it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
You know, I have a family. I have 5 girls that need me too, but I know that this is where God wants me. You know, I know that I need to keep loving men because there's, you know, they need somebody to love them, and they need somebody there for them. So, I mean, it's a healthy balance. I mean, Olivia, I mean, on the weekends, that's family time for me. Monday, so Tuesday, Wednesday, I don't get home till 10 o'clock each night because Tuesday's Living Faith. We do our service. Wednesday is our Find God or Die AA meeting. And Sunday, we go to church with the guys.
Right.
So
Justin opens a sober living, or not sober living, sorry, an AA. He's like, oh, Craig, I'm going to do an AA on Wednesday nights. I'm like, that's cool. You want to know what I'm going to call it? What's that? Find God or Die. I'm like, that's subtle.
they're either going to hate it or love it.
There ain't no bait and switch coming to your AA.
No.
When they look it up on the website and they see that, there's no bait and switch on what that AA meeting is all about.
Yeah, that's another thing too that I get into because I love the AA program, but I think it's so watered down now that we try to take God out of it.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I'm the first to say that I didn't understand AA when we got into it. As from a Christian perspective and someone that didn't struggle like you did, I didn't understand AA. I understand it more and more, and I actually really think it's a good thing. I think they need to, if their higher power is Jesus Christ and Jesus alone, it's a good program.
Yeah.
The difference between Jesus and all other religions is we have the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Jesus said it was better for me to leave for my helper to come. It's like better than you, better than the Son of God in flesh. That don't make any sense at all. But he left with us the Holy Spirit, and that's if you have the Spirit living in you and you work the steps, you'll be fine.
And this is the thing too, Craig, and that's why I never stopped doing it, because now we got 40 people on a regular that come every Wednesday night. But if all these other meetings and everything, they're working it the way they want to work it, and they're calling the doorknob their God, that's fine. You do whatever you want. Yeah. But when those people come into my meeting, that's my opportunity to tell them about Jesus.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Jesus in my meeting. I'm sorry. Some meetings you go to and you say Jesus and they're like, you know, that's fine. But
right.
Every guy that goes around the room and we're talking about Jesus, and I feel like that's what I want.
I'm still a little mad that I didn't get any street credit at all when I shared my testimony. You guys walked up to me afterwards and was like, it's good to hear a story from a good guy, that didn't really have a problem. It's like, dude, I used to go pretty hard. Craig, shut up. You told me, Craig, shut up. You said, you used to drink. You said, I'd walk up and tell my kids, get off the couch. I just sold this couch.
Because you was drinking in college, I was selling my couch for meth.
Yeah, I suppose it's not the exact same.
Yeah. But we got the same end goal, though.
Oh, yeah. I got a heart for you guys. I love you guys. I want to see people sober and saved. And but, yeah, no, Find God or Die, Wednesday nights, best AA in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Biggest AA. I have a bad Trump impression. No, 40's awesome, though, dude.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
We got people come in, and people come just because of the name.
Yeah.
They're like, we seen that on the meeting chair, and we had to come.
You got a pretty good and consistent group, right?
Yep.
That's cool, man. You got a AA. It's like, I'm sure you feel like some days you're not making an impact. I know I do some days. You're like, man, am I doing anything that's even making a difference? But I can so clearly remember 3 or 4 years ago, me and you're barely sober and we're talking and dreaming and stuff. And that's not that many years. And now you are running an AA on Wednesday nights. You have a sober living house expanding to your second. You're helping so many guys get sober and saved. I mean, you're making a gigantic dent in the problem that we got going on. And you're making a gigantic dent into the kingdom, which is way more important.
That's the real goal here. So we want to get as many people into heaven as we possibly can. So we're trying to make it look like Jesus Christ the best that we can. So the attraction is getting sober, and the attraction is the job too. Yeah. But that gets them in the door.
It's a package deal. Yeah. It's a good setup.
So as soon as they come in the door, we're immediately telling them about Jesus.
Yeah. So, well, I miss you guys, and I'm so proud of what you guys are doing, and I just can't believe it's still growing. Doesn't seem to be stopping. So I'm proud of you guys. Yeah, I'm happy to have been a part of it, and I still am, obviously.
Yeah, but, absolutely.
Yeah. Any kind of final things you want to talk about?
No, that's it. Just kind of wanted to.
You need to learn how to do concrete again, though, brother. This dude did a curb in Nichols Hills that I'm embarrassed of.
That's it.
The thing is 3 inches in some spots and 6 inches in the other.
I've been driving around, you would say, for a couple of years, and I remember when I first became a supervisor, and they're like, "You got to get out of the concrete, Justin. You have to get out of the concrete. You're behind the 8 ball."
Yeah.
I think it was Shane that told me I need to get out of the concrete because I'm behind the 8 ball if I'm in the concrete every day. I didn't know nothing but to work hard, but yeah, I would say I'm a little rusty.
Well, you're still working hard. You're just working hard differently. Being a supervisor, Justin's a superintendent at Rudy, and man, one of the hardest working dudes I've ever been around in my life. And you obviously oversee a bunch of crews now, not just sober living, but you got the ability to make a difference in the non-sober living crews as well, which I remember you kind of catching that vision, and that was cool. So you're making a gigantic impact on the kingdom. I'm happy to have you on my podcast, and proud to call you one of my best friends. And just love you a lot and proud of you.
Yep. Love you, Craig. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Love you too. See ya.
See ya.